Welcome to Revelation Unraveled. I'm your host, William Tapley, also known as the Third Eagle of the Apocalypse and the co-prophet of the end times. As you know, sometimes on this program, I like to try things a little different. So today I want to give you a quiz, and that is a question about the woman clothed with the sun in the book of Revelations, chapter number 12. And the question I am posing to you, my audience, is, does this vision occur in daytime, or in nighttime, or sometime in between? And I'm going to expound on this at the end of the program. In the meantime, let's take a look at who this woman in chapter number 12 of the book of Revelation, who does she represent? Revelation 12:1. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. Now the sun, moon, and stars in this passage symbolize the Trinity. And the woman is the woman, not just any woman. And she is clothed with the Trinity. Remember, the woman, back in Genesis 3:15, symbolizes Mary. And remember, Jesus addresses his mother as the woman several times in the Gospels. The woman is Mary's title. Therefore, this woman, in chapter number 12 of the book of Revelation, symbolizes Mary. But this woman also symbolizes the church, and not just the Catholic Church, but any Christian denomination which brings Christ to its members. Revelation 12:2. And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth, and pained to be delivered. Now here in verse number 2, we see the second symbolism of the woman, because here the symbolism represents the church. The woman is in pain to bring Christ to her members. Mary did not suffer labor pains because her birth was a virginal birth. She remained a virgin before and after the birth of her son, Jesus. Therefore, the woman in this passage must represent the church. And by church, I mean the Catholic Church and any Christian denomination which brings Christ to its members. In other words, if your pastor brings Christ to you, his congregation, then he is part of this woman clothed with the sun. Now in this next verse, we are back to Mary again. Verse 5, And she brought forth a man-child, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up unto God and to his throne. Now St. John continues this alternation between the woman symbolizing Mary and the church. Now the man-child in verse number 5, of course, is Jesus. Therefore, in this verse, St. John is talking about Mary, because Mary is the one who brings forth the man-child who is destined to rule the planet with a rod of iron. And of course, this refers to Jesus, and he is taken up to heaven at the ascension. He will rule us with a rod of iron during the millennium, that is, after the 7 years of tribulation. Now, in the next verse, the woman becomes the remnant Catholic Church, which must flee away from the institutionalized church. Revelation 12:6. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. Notice the word in this passage is fleeing, and you always flee from something. This is the remnant Catholic Church fleeing into the wilderness. And notice that they feed her there. Now, who does this they refer to? We know that the first half of the tribulation, there will only be 2 authentic voices on the planet, and that is the prophets Enoch and Elijah. Therefore, the they in this passage refers to the 2 witnesses, which God will send after the Catholic Church has been taken over by the one-world communist tyranny. Verse number 13, And when the dragon saw that he was cast unto the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man-child. Now in verses 13 through 17, St. John is primarily describing the remnant Catholic Church. Notice here in verse number 13, the dragon has been cast to earth. So the woman cannot here be Mary, because as we saw in verse number 1, Mary is shown in heaven. Here, the woman who brings forth the man-child is the church. And the church brings forth Jesus to her members primarily through the Eucharist. Remember, in the second half of the tribulation, the Antichrist will ban the celebration of the Eucharist from all Christian churches. Now, in the next verse, we are looking at the second half of the Great Tribulation period. Verse 14, "And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished for a time, and times, and half a time, from the face of the serpent." Now, the 2 wings of the great eagle in this passage symbolize the protection of the remnant Catholics, and that is Mary's rosary and scapular. The time, times, and half a time refer to the second half of the tribulation period. When she flies to her desert, that is different from fleeing, because you flee from something, which the remnant church did before. They fled from the institutional church, but here they fly to a place, and that is, they fly to their place in the desert. Now here, notice that St. John simply says that she is nourished. There's no reference to the prophets Enoch and Elijah here, because they have already been assassinated. This is the second half of the tribulation period. Verse 15, "And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood." Now in this verse, the serpent, of course, symbolizes Satan, and he attacks the remnant church through a flood which comes out of his mouth. Undoubtedly, he attacks the church through verbal assaults. Now this flood, which comes out of the Satan's mouth, undoubtedly represents a flood of lies against the remnant Catholics. And in the next verse, we see that this flood is taken away by the earth. Verse 16, "And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth, and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth." Now in this passage, I'm not entirely sure how the earth will swallow up this flood of attack from the serpent. All of these events in the second half of the tribulation period will be announced beforehand by Enoch and Elijah during the first 3.5 years of the tribulation. They will explain this to you much better than I will be able to. Therefore, what exactly constitutes the flood which comes out of the serpent's mouth, and what constitutes the earth swallowing up this flood, will, I am sure, be explained by the 2 witnesses. Verse 17, "And the dragon was wroth," that is, angry, "with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God, and have the testimony of Jesus Christ." Now here in verse number 17, the serpent continues to make war with the seed of the woman. And there are 2 seeds in this passage. Those who keep the commandments of God indicate the remnant Jews, those who are converted by Elijah, whereas those who have the testimony of Jesus Christ refer to the end times Catholics, the remnant Catholic Church in the desert. This verse proves that this woman cannot be Israel. Remember, Israel apostatizes. When Enoch and Elijah are assassinated in Jerusalem, the inhabitants all rejoice. Only a very small remnant of Jews will be converted and will join with the other Christian denominations who are on earth at this time. They are the ones who are fleeing from the Antichrist and who are refusing to take the mark of the beast. So now let's return to my quiz question. What time of day does this vision occur? Let's look again at verse number 1. "And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars." So Mary/church is clothed with the sun, so is this daytime. But she has the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. So is this nighttime. Or could it be sometime in between, such as dawn or dusk? And if you have any suggestions, please write them in the comment section. And as I say, on my next program, I will reveal the answers as I see them. And if you would like a free copy of my book, Revelation Unraveled, simply write to the address you see on your screen.